Business and Leisure, your weekly window to the world of business and guide to the good life. Hosted by Mr. Ray Butch Gamboa.
Hello to everyone. Welcome once again to the perfect combination of business and the good life. This is Business and Leisure, your weekly business and lifestyle electronic magazine, where we bring you the week's significant business developments together with the current trends in the world of leisure. This week, following our established tradition, we will again veer away from our regular episode as we continue with our series of special presentations for all our viewers. As tradition dictates in the show, every year as December comes to a close, we present the BNL Year-End Specials, wherein in the last two editions, we aired our two-part series of our discovered culinary and lifestyle destinations that we have featured in BNL's Lifestyle Section segment Places. And for this episode, we have invited the heads of different business groups to give an assessment of the year that was in the sector they represent. This assessment, together with their forecast for 2018, comprise our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special. So sit back as we commence right after this short break.
As a coach, you don't define yourself in terms of championships you've won. What happens beyond the trophies? You have to move forward, grow, and get better. Life is all about taking shots, and I want these kids to at least have the courage to take that shot so they can grow, learn, be compassionate, and have the heart of a champion.
Think you're tough? Do you dare to go off-road or off-key? Do you use your great power with great control? With the new Isuzu D-Max, you're tough enough to be unstoppable. And you're tough enough
Tito Derek!
to be right back. Isuzu D-Max, tough enough for anything.
Welcome back as we now usher in our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special. We start off with the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, or PCCI, here represented by Mr. George Barcelon, past president and current chairman of the board. Mr. Barcelon talked about the giant step that PCCI took in ensuring that the organization took in undertaking its advocacy of having a single voice in addressing the country's areas of concern. Included here are the areas of good governance, infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism.
We follow through on this advocacy with various general membership meetings. So we had meeting wherein we invited the financial institutions, both private and public government banks, to discuss how we can help the MSMEs for them to avail of a business loan more readily without too much hassle as far as compliance.
PCCI also stressed on the areas of science and technology, education, people skills, and the sources of financing our MSMEs. On several occasions, PCCI stressed the need for adequate airports, seaports, international container terminals, and improved telecommunications.
This has gotten the attention of the government, and President Duterte has already pronounced that there will be a third player to improve our Wi-Fi, broadband, and the like.
According to the PCCI chair, for the last quarter of 2017, the country's GDP was at 6.9%, and the manufacturing sector was crucial here. This despite the looming excise tax and the very high power costs, which renders our business sector less competitive.
In general, the public is supportive of the action that the president has taken to reduce crimes, no? And particularly drug-related. We know very well it's a never-ending war.
The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry is obviously optimistic about the prospects in the Philippine business landscape. Here, he gives his forecast for 2018.
With all of the thrust of the government, okay, they're targeting the ease of doing business. Okay, and in many areas we've seen some improvement, but again, it's something that has to be we have to be really diligent in achieving that goal, because that would really help the MSME grow. The other side that I've mentioned, the financing side, it looks very positive. We're getting international awareness that the Philippines is economically speaking is ready to take off, and we encourage both ASEAN countries, European countries, and North American countries to look into the Philippines to invest.
PCCI has always been actively promoting good governance and an improved business climate for the country. This umbrella organization has also been a positive factor, with a dynamic partner of the government in ensuring all these. Now, for the second business sector on focus for this year-end special of BizWatch, we have the franchising industry. And with us to give his assessment for 2017 is the President of the Philippine Franchise Association, or PFA, Mr. Richard Sanz. He is also the CEO of Philippine Food Asia Corporation.
2017 was a really great year, despite of all the situations that happened, like the Marawi siege, which internationally we were in the news, but locally the franchise sector did really great, surprisingly great. Although there was the PSP report of a dip in the consumer confidence, I think it for the Q3 it rebounded with a record high.
The Philippine Franchise Association, which is the biggest franchising association in the country, is the voice of Philippine franchising, according to Mr. Sanz. It has 200 member companies under its fold and is also a member of the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation and the World Franchise Council.
With regards to the local franchise industry, we usually have our Franchise Asia Expo every July, and this year was the 25th year, and it was really the biggest franchise convention ever. So we have seen, comparing it from 2016 to 2017, we have seen at least 30% increases. Now, for example, 2017, this year we saw 350 participating companies, which is higher by 20% comparing it to 2016. And the number of booths were almost 600, which is, if I remember, it's around 35% higher than 2016. So what it shows is that the confidence in the franchise sector is really booming for 2017.
This year also marked the 25th year of the PFA, and to mark this milestone, the organization held the biggest franchise convention in its history, with 350 participating companies. This is a 20% increase from 2016.
Self-service laundry and brands like Quick Clean are really doing well. They're really expanding, and recently, we have seen a resurgence of the shawarma through Turk Shawarma. They're really doing well. But of course, you also have your mainstays like your big concepts like Jollibee and Shakey's. I learned that Jollibee opened 250 stores for 2017. So it's really a huge number.
PFA sees the influx of foreign brands as both a challenge and a window for opportunities for the local players to level up.
If there are a lot of brands that are coming in, a lot of foreign brands coming in, it's also an opportunity for Filipino brands to go out. So we have seen a lot during the past 3 or 5 years, a lot of Filipino brands to go out, like Potato Corner. Potato Corner has been very successful in other markets. They're in the US, they're in Indonesia. I think in Indonesia they have 100 stores. In the US, 50 stores. In Thailand, they're really doing well. Other brands like Jollibee, Bench are also expanding aggressively. So we see this as a two-way street. Brands come in, but Filipino brands really have to go out as well.
And thirdly, the Franchise Association sees digitalization as another challenge they have to meet head-on. E-commerce is very strong in most other countries, and the PFA is seeing this as the next frontier as they prepare their member companies not only for e-commerce but also for mobile commerce.
Lastly, we also want our partners in government, our partners in the private sector to realize the opportunities and the contributions made by the franchise sector. As I mentioned, the franchise sector contributes 6% to the GDP. So we want to be involved and be able to help out in policy making, and that would make the franchise sector increase even more.
In the next 2 years, the Philippine Franchise Association sees its membership doubling as they prepare for more activities in the Visayas and Mindanao areas. We shall continue with our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special when we come back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
When you sweat to be sweet and you clean bar seat, it's love. When you try to look cool but you look like a fool, it's love. It's love. It's love.
Show your love with the new features of the all-new Innova. Love the journey.
Happiness. Happiness times 7. The all-new Honda Mobilio. Ease of use. Flexible interior for your various needs. Convenient features. Advanced technology. Powerful engine. Fuel efficient for a smooth journey. And sleek design for you. The all-new Honda Mobilio.
Welcome back, and you're still with us here on one of the Business and Leisure series of year-end specials. And now we usher in the third sector in the 2017 year-end special of BizWatch, and that is the export sector. The president of the Philippine Exporters Confederation Incorporated, or PhilExport, Mrs. Sergio Ortiz Luis, joins us.
We're glad that export recovered at the latter part of last year, and continuously improved in 2017. We were afraid that the possible persistence of the negative for the last 2 years, but now we are improving, and I think we may end up the year with at least 3 to 4% positive on merchandise export, and hopefully this will be carried over to 2018.
Export has always been one of the lifelines of the Philippine economy. In the recent ASEAN summit held here in the Philippines, the country's exporters hoped for more light in their sector. But that wasn't really the thrust of the summit. However, PhilExport has continued with its thrust to push Philippine exports in a global market.
We have developed a new export development plan, no? That is just submitted to the President for approval. No? This is the 2018 to 2003 years plan, 19 and 20, no? And there are strategies there, which is basically the same strategies as when you are growing quite fast, no? But with some, I think, some focus on certain items. But I think if the government gives us the necessary logistics to be able to fulfill those targets that we have, then I'm pretty certain that we will exceed our expectation.
It will be recalled that just as the export sector was poised to take off again, our biggest markets, namely the European Union, the United States, and Japan themselves, had big economic woes to address. In recent years, these markets have since recovered. The PhilExport chairman is still optimistic for the export sector in 2018, but hopes that the current administration will pay attention to this well-researched suggestion.
We are suggesting that when we are talking of out of the box, out of the usual, because, you know, for instance, we are spending, 80 billion pesos to give away to CCT, the cash condition cash transfer. We are not even, it's not creating jobs. There is no way even for us to be able to know whether it is really beneficial. And yet, if you allocate, and we are saying allocate 20% of that to financing MSME, that will really create jobs. It might not create the repayment that is expected by banks. Yung 95%, 97% repayment. But then again, yung CCT, pinapamigay yun, walang repayment doon. So, yun ang sinasabi ko, you allocate portions of that to lending, yung walang collateral, tapos yung case-to-case, the basis of success will be how many jobs it created, not how much was the repayment. There will be losses, but then it's much, much better. You probably will collect about 70%, not 95%, but it's better than CCT. CCT, you don't get anything back.
In closing, the chairman of the Umbrella Organization of Philippine Exporters reiterates its support for the government's tax project TRAIN, but hopes that the government recognizes the urgency of the MSME's need for financing in order to give them the necessary boost and sustained support. And now for the next business sector in our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special, we put on center stage SEPI, of the semiconductor and electronics industries in the Philippines. With us is Ms. Jaja Gaid, who heads the organization's business section.
Compared with 2016, year-to-date also, January to September, this is about 10.3% higher. So we are very optimistic that by the end of the fourth quarter, we will have much higher exports. In terms of import, we also remain as the largest importer. About 25% of our imports are for the electronics industry. but this presents to us an opportunity to localize some parts. Later, I can discuss with you our parts localization initiative. Yes, but as an exporter, we remain the largest exporter.
The Philippine Statistics Authority has just released the official data for the period covering January to September 2017. SAPI recorded over 24 billion US dollars in export, the largest in Philippine commodity export, and accounting for 50.5% of the total Philippine export.
Well, 2017 is interesting. China and Taiwan. So I don't know if you're familiar with the manufacturing clusters in the southern Luzon region, but a Taiwanese a company, Kinpo, has just started its expansion. So its total investments will probably reach about, well, if my notes, well, I'm checking my notes, but it will reach about $30 million in total investments, and they're going to double their workforce.
With the recent signing of the Memorandum of Agreement with Japanese Prime Minister Abe of a sizable investment package, Japan continues to be an active trading partner not only of SAPI but of the country as well. Meanwhile, the association has been representing the electronics industry in foreign meets.
In October, over a month ago, almost a month ago, SAPI also was represented at the World Electronics Forum in France, where the mayor of the city, Angers, France, the mayor said that they're interested in looking into partnerships with the Philippines because of our agility and cost competitiveness. So I would say the 2018 is a year of optimism. Data shows that in PEZA, we have had over 46.6 billion in year-to-date investments in manufacturing. And the largest locator investments for PEZA are from semiconductor and electronics. That's about 37 to 38%.
Speaking of parts localization, in 2016, we imported $22 billion worth of parts and materials. SAPI hopes to promote localization through the development of our small and medium enterprises. If we can only localize 10% of our import requirements, that is equivalent to $2 billion worth of parts and materials.
We have several ways to promote this initiative. One is that we have networking committees. These networking committees are made up of purchasing managers of the different manufacturing companies, logistics managers, and these groups identify the top high value and top high volume imported parts that we can localize.
Of course, we still need to check on the limitations such as quality standards, technology readiness, and market proximity. Mostly our local suppliers only provide packaging materials and mechanical parts, and we need to broaden this to meet industry needs.
Our exports are made up of course, semiconductors or components and devices, and then electronics products, like office equipment, automotive electronics, and the like. If you are going to break down our export numbers, 70% would be semiconductors. So that's about what? $20 billion. So $20 billion is about 4% of the $436 billion global market. So that's a 4% share. You can increase that. But if you look at the electronics manufacturing services, so that's 30% of our total exports. That's about $8 billion. That's pretty small. But there's an opportunity there because the global market is much bigger. It's about $1.7 trillion.
The SAPI official emphasizes that the Philippines remains very competitive, but cautions that we need to keenly watch Vietnam as it is surging ahead at a very fast pace.
Clearly competitive, but we do have a very big rival in the ASEAN. Vietnam, they have incentives that are really attractive, and we need to make sure that we can retain our incentives for our investors here, that we can fill in infrastructure gaps, that we can provide and really invest in human capital, okay? Because it no longer is a big advantage just because we can speak English. Our neighbors are learning English, diba? So there's plenty of opportunity for us to remain competitive, but we are still competitive. But Vietnam is it's to watch out for. Yeah.
Clearly, there is a need for us to develop our own niche in the global market. One example lies in automotive production. As Ms. Jaja Gaid said, there is no point in competing with Thailand in car production, especially as they also have a big domestic market. Instead, we can look at the components of electric and self-driving vehicles.
There's a niche for the Philippines. So this study captures that, the set of products and technologies in various subsectors that the Philippines can develop a niche. Because if we can get this niche, then we can boost our exports in specific products that will really build the Philippine brand.
Other challenges include the transfer of new technologies and the government's determination to improve the country's ease in doing business. There is also a need to close the gaps in infrastructure.
To develop new materials, you need PhDs, you need R&D centers, you need IC design centers. So IC design is actually the core of the semiconductor industry. It all begins there. Right now, we import everything. Mostly from Taiwan, but we import everything. But if we have the facility to design ICs here, and we have intellectual property rights laws that will safeguard IC design, original IC designs, that's a step forward. We are also looking at the installation of lab-scale wafer fabs. So if you produce it in industrial scale, that will cost you hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you have a lab-scale wafer fab here, that's really achievable. So this is a challenge for the industry.
Comparing our incentives with those of Vietnam, they allow full foreign ownership, and their corporate taxes are much lower than ours. In addition, their power rates are definitely not as high as ours. As far as labor cost and the government's CARS program go, this is what Ms. Gaid has to say.
One of the characteristics of our industry is that production volumes fluctuate every month. So there's really months where production will peak, and there's months where production will be low. And because we are so output oriented and our products are goods, not services but goods, so if it will be a real challenge not to employ contractual employees.
Now here are the projections for 2018.
For 2017, we projected a 5 to 7% growth. But already, if you look at the year-to-date numbers, we have 10% higher export than last year. So we're looking at 2018 with great optimism. As for our programs, SAPI continues to serve its member companies. So we are in 2018, we are set on making our industry academe linkages stronger and more well-known. Because our member companies can partner with local schools for industry immersions for faculty and staff, for laboratory installations, and in the future for R&D work that they can consign to universities here. We want to make sure that we provide the right ecosystem for boosting exports, for attracting new investments, for transferring technologies and skills in the Philippines, so that as an industry we're going to remain competitive, and we are going to remain the preferred manufacturing partner of many multinational companies based overseas, and that we can also grow medium and small sized enterprises here.
As Ms. Gaid says, Parts localization is SAPI's buzzword now. Apart from this, SAPI continues to advocate their well-planned programs in the country. That was the PhilExport and SAPI, and we have more business leaders who give their business assessments and forecasts when we come back after this short break. Please stay with us.
Calling all automobile enthusiasts. Autofocus.com.ph is exclusive to the automobile, where you'll find reviews on the latest brand new car models, together with their head-to-head comparisons. It has the detailed specs of car models available in the country and their latest SRPs and special promos, together with the latest auto industry news and developments like car launches and test drives. Autofocus.com.ph is all about automobiles. Click on.
Welcome back once again to this week's edition of Business and Leisure, featuring our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special. And now it's time to hear the voice of the Philippine automotive industry. 2018 is definitely a very challenging year for our automotive manufacturers and importers. But how did they fare in 2017? Attorney Romel Gutierrez, the sitting president of the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, or CAMPI, gives his assessment.
So far, the auto industry is doing very well. It was expected. Our projection was about 450,000, and I think the rate things are going, we will be able to meet that, yes.
The Philippine automotive industry is definitely one of the most dynamic industries in the country today. 2016 was considered a banner year, but 2017 has surpassed that even more. There is a recent development, however, that is threatening to throw a monkey wrench into this rosy picture, and that is the implementation of the new excise tax in 2018.
The excise tax is a tax based on the manufacture of the vehicles and imported ones, no? So it is imposed right from the very start, and consumers bear it, no? So the basis of the excise tax is on the cost to import landed cost, and it is based on the schedule. There are 4 tiers, no? Those below 600,000, and then those 600,000 to 1 million, and then 1 million to 4 million, and the above 4 million. So there are different rates applicable based on that range, no?
Of course, many have been anticipating the price increase, so others have opted to beat the deadline. This would account for the very high car sales for 2017, but it also throws off the figures for 2018.
At this time, it's actually, I don't say too late, but because normally when you place an order, you have to wait at least 1 month before the car arrives. No? And excise tax is imposable upon release from the port. Okay, so it's very seldom that you have vehicles available already. Okay, so at this time, if you ask already buy cars, well, you can place an order, yeah, but most likely the vehicles will come next year, which is imposed with the new excise tax rates already.
With all this, however, CAMPI reiterates their full support for the government.
Still positive, yeah? And despite the excise tax, we just have to adjust, and I'm sure industry players are mindful about the impact of this one, but yeah, we will go along this line, yes.
With the positive outlook of our automotive industry, it is still business as usual for the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines. They will forge ahead with their projects for 2018 and beyond.
CAMPI again will be holding another motor show. It's actually every other year, so it happens that 2018 is a year that CAMPI will be holding another motor show. So we'll be inviting you then, but we are already preparing for that as early as now.
We held the presses, so to speak, to give way to the views and projections of the local automotive industry's market leader, Toyota Motor Philippines, with no less than its Vice Chairman, Mr. Alfred T., which we were able to solicit immediately after the much-awaited passing into law of the highly controversial tax reform bill. And this is what he had to say.
The good news is that it's now passed and there's no more speculation. We can now move forward and we know how to plan. There were a lot of consultations done before, and until it would be approved, we wouldn't know really how to plan for the coming year. So all in all, the results of the excise tax reform for the car industry, I think, will pave well for all the makers, for the whole industry. It didn't come out to be as steep, as severe as it first was planned out to be. So that much we are thankful. I believe that there will be some adjustment in 2018 because of the rush purchase of the consumers in fear of a very high excise tax, and so there will be some correction, maybe at least in the first half. No? So with this new reform, and we have to recast, we have to plan our pricing for each model depending on the segment they belong to, one by one, and so we have to come out with a new forecast again. But nevertheless, it's very optimistic for the whole industry in the many years to come. For Toyota, well, as you know, Toyota's model lineup is all across, from the first tier below 600 all the way to the luxury model. No, so for Lexus, so there's some impact to the high models, and there's some impact to the cars above 600, above 1 million, and there's some changes and reduction on the higher end cars. So all in all, I think it will balance out.
That was market leader Toyota Motor Philippines Vice Chairman Alfred T. with his immediate reactions to the just approved excise tax reform law, who was preceded by attorney Romel Gutierrez, president of CAMPI, the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, with the industry organization's assessment and projections. More business insights on this week's special edition of Business and Leisure when we come back for another short break. I'll be right back. You are still with us here on your weekly business and lifestyle electronic magazine, Business and Leisure. We continue with our 2017 BizWatch Year-End Special. Moving on now, we paved the way for the Federation of Philippine Industries, or FPI, the organization of the various manufacturing industries in the country. With us to give his assessment and outlook for the sector they represent is the Association Chairman, Jesus Aranza.
Except for the trouble, of course, in Marawi area, by and large, industry, where I am representing, did very well. As a matter of fact, based on the statistics coming from DTI, the industry surpassed its growth compared to the service industry. Dati kasi ang service ang bumabandera, no? But during the last quarter, the industry took over. They are now ahead of the service industry. And if you talk about economic growth of our country, I think it's the highest in the region. If I'm not mistaken, the statistics given by government is that it reached 6.9 something percent during the third quarter, and that is the highest in the region compared to some of our neighboring countries.
Mr. Aranza talked about the significant improvement as far as manufacturing is concerned, and this holds especially true for the food sector. Prospects for new investments are very likely as well on the heels of President Duterte's foreign trips.
The investment in the third quarter is even bigger than the third quarter of last year. So there is a big improvement, commitment. As a matter of fact, there are investments which have been approved by the foreign investment. No, there's an agency in the government, and they have approved it. So, having approved the investment, that means that it's really coming.
In his assessment, there has been a big improvement in our peace and order in the country because most of the crimes are drug-related. This, of course, has been the biggest focus of the present administration.
If peace and order can be achieved in rural areas, then there will be investments that will go to that area. And it will create a more balanced economic growth.
Mr. Aranza further expounded on this, saying that with peace and order, more investments will likely be poured into the rural areas, generating more jobs and resulting in a more equitable distribution of wealth. Dispersing the industries could also help decongest the metro and ease traffic. For the sectors that hold the most potential in the manufacturing industries, it is definitely the food sector and construction.
Based on the statistics again of the DTI, it's the food manufacturing that lead all the manufacturing. And second, I believe, is the construction materials, manufacturing of construction materials. Why? Because of the series of typhoon that hit us. And you need those things for rehabilitation. As of today, I cannot say yet the effect of these taxes. My misgiving in this train issue, ng tax reform, is that some of the taxes imposed by Congress were not really recommended by the Finance Department. So who in government, sino ba ang may trabaho sa ating gobyerno to propose tax measures? Wouldn't that be the finance?
You just heard the views of the manufacturing sector on certain issues on the tax reform program. Mr. Aranza also aired his views on his pet peeve, the recurring issue of big-time smuggling.
One thing that they have not eliminated until today is the effect of smuggling. Until today, I think it is impossible for them to eliminate smuggling, but at least they should be able to minimize smuggling.
This year, the FBI commissioned the University of Asia and the Pacific to make a study on the smuggling issue in the country, involving just 8 of the major industries here.
The result of the study says that for 5 years, no? I think it's 2011 onward, no, 5 years. The government, the economy lost 400 billion pesos in taxes and duties for the span of 5 years. For that 8 industry alone. Doon lang sa 8 industriya. And if you include the multiplier effect, for instance, the multiplier, what are these? This enfranchisement of labor. So wala kang purchasing power, di ba? So yung mawawalang capacity sa production ng local industry because nakukumpetensya ng importer na hindi nagbabayad. So if you add this, the government, we are losing 900 billion for that span of 5 years. And it is close to what we have checked before. Before, we compared the record of IMF of all export to the Philippines, and we compared that with the record of customs. That alone, sa lahat ng industriya yon, ang nawawala sa atin is 200 billion pesos a year na hindi pa kasama doon ang multiplier effect.
The FBI has given results of these studies to the Department of Finance, the National Economic Development Authority, and other pertinent government agencies.
So there is a plan by the NEDA and DTI to is paluluwagin ang pagtanggap ng investment kahit na doon sa ipinagbabawal. Congress should wake up. I'm not trying to be a hero for all this. Pero kailangan ng Congress maggawa na ng batas na sana pag ang puhunang ganung kaliit lang ng kailangan, hindi na kailangan pwedeng pasukan ng malalaking dambuhala.
The organization, through Mr. Arranza, appreciates the creation of Competition Commission, which is tasked with preventing the possibility of monopolies and cartels. For 2018, the FBI hopes that the country will have more investors in the agriculture sector as they take the first step.
We will adopt a community, farm community, yes, rice field, no? And use certified seeds. Kami ang magpo-provide, mga 10 hectares yan, with the help of Agritech, yung naggagawa ng mga seeds. And we'll see, because using that, it may double the harvest.
If successful, this can be adopted by other big civic organizations and help the country realize self-sufficiency in rice. Meanwhile, this is Mr. Arranza's suggestion to the Department of Trade and Industry for 2018.
I want DTI to list down all importations of the Philippines. Ano ang pwede mong may produce? I can produce, let's say, parchment paper. I can produce this. So you produce. So then you will become less dependent on import.
Lastly, Mr. Arranza's plea is for more businessmen with a heart to temper their greed for profit and power. We will round off our 2017 BizWatch year-end special as we take our final break. Stay with us. We shall be right back.
Think you're tough? Do you dare to go off-road or off-key? Do you use your great power with great control? With the new Isuzu D-Max, you're tough enough to be unstoppable. And you're tough enough to be right back. Isuzu D-Max, tough enough for anything.
Motoring Today is now on the web. Watch this episode or other past episodes of the country's longest running motoring program any time of the day by logging on to our website, motoringtoday.ph. Motoring Today is now online, just a click away.
Welcome back once again to this special edition of BNL, featuring assessments of the year that was in the country's business and projections for the year to come. Moving on now to our last business sector, we have the Information Technology and Business Process Association of the Philippines, also known as IBPAP. And with us is Mr. Ray Untal, President and CEO of IBPAP.
IBPAP is the umbrella organization for the IT and BPO industry here in the Philippines.
The geopolitical developments and situations that Mr. Untal is referring to is the America First policy of the current American President Donald Trump. Many believe that Mr. Trump's protectionist stance threatened our expanding service industry.
As many of us in the industry know, there were a number of geopolitical situations that occurred late last year, which resulted into a wait-and-see attitude for many of our existing locators and even potential locators. The good news is that we have started to see growth, and growth in fact has been happening largely from the incumbents, meaning our large players. Many of them have been growing, and I'm very pleased to share with the broader group here that we are anticipating decent growth for the industry as we wrap up 2017.
With that potential threat qualified, Mr. Untal is now ready with his organization's assessment of 2017 in the IT and business process sector.
We are in fact closely monitoring how we are performing this year, and during the first half of the year, we saw that there has been a drop in terms of IT BPM investment as reported by PEZA. The good news though is that as we continue with all of the efforts to make this industry vibrant, we have seen better growth over the course of the second half. And I'm in fact very happy to say that while we still see investments year to date as slightly lower than what it was the year before, overall growth is decent for 2017.
The figures for 2015 and 2016 were better for the sector, and Mr. Untal's assessment for 2017 is only decent growth. Here, he also shares the many challenges for the industry.
I think when we look at the different challenges that we have, I would prefer to focus on our human capital, or the talent that is required for us to sustain the growth that we have reported in our roadmap. Now, I guess it's really important for us to recognize that the roadmap has an aspiration to grow this industry by 100,000 new jobs each year. And it is imperative that we have the talent supply to meet that demand. And it is equally important that we look into how we will further refine the skills of the future graduates, such that the skills that they're going to have over a period of time will be commensurate to what the demands of the jobs of the future will be. Also looking at the incumbents, meaning the employees that we have in employ today, we need to be looking at how we can upskill them or reskill them as we also evolve the type of jobs that are going to be needed for the growth that we anticipate over the next few years.
That was Mr. Ray Untal, President and CEO of IBPAP, the umbrella organization of IT business process companies in the country. And with that, we wrap up the 2017 year-end special for BizWatch. We would like to thank you, our loyal viewers, for watching this special edition of your weekly electronic TV magazine, Business and Leisure, featuring the year that was in business from the critical eyes of the country's business leaders, together with their projections on the year just ahead. We promise that we will continue giving you more exciting and informative business and lifestyle features every week as we welcome the turn of the year. Until the next time, this has been your host, Ray Butch Gamboa. Good business to all and enjoy the good life. Happy New Year to all of you.